call for an urgent electoral reform. The Center for Advancement of Civil Liberties and Development, also known as the Center for Liberty, is a non-governmental organization that is presently focused on electoral reforms, among other core issues bordering on democratic governance and social change in Nigeria. Today, we are delighted to announce the commencement of a people-driven electoral reform advocacy sponsored by the Open Society Initiative for West Africa, OSIWA, to ensure the immediate passage of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill 2018 by the 9th National Assembly. ERA is committed to a comprehensive reform of the legal and constitutional framework underpinning elections in Nigeria. The intervention will responsibly galvanize the public towards electoral reform by creating awareness on the current deficit in the electoral process. We will, among other provisions in the amendment bill before the National Assembly, be advocating for full biometrics for accreditation, electronic collation of results, conduct of all states, that is, governorship and House of Assembly elections, and federal, that is, President and National Assembly elections in one day, free movement of electorates to enable a wider voter participation, election finance reform, as well as other important provisions. We believe that the 9th National Assembly has a responsibility to actively aggregate the general views of all stakeholders in Nigeria's democratic process, including the civil society organizations, political parties, international partners, and especially the electorate, to legislate an enduring electoral reform act that will reinforce the trust of the electorate and other stakeholders in the credibility of Nigeria's electoral process. Upon resumption of the 9th National Assembly for the 2020 legislative session on January 28, 2020, Center for Liberty, alongside a group of volunteers, had staged an urgent, peaceful walk to the first gate of the National Assembly to remind the distinguished federal lawmakers to prioritize the passage of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill to further demonstrate its commitment to free, fair, and credible elections in Nigeria. Elections in Nigeria, including the recent nationwide rerun elections, have repeatedly exposed the inherent loopholes and defects in our electoral process. This urgently requires electoral reforms, which we believe must be prioritized as a foremost legislative focus before the next governorship elections in Edo and Ondo states. We are saddened that after 20 years of uninterrupted democratic dispensation, Nigeria is yet to learn the simple way to organize credible elections. This repeated failure to organize elections according to global standards has severely damaged Nigeria's reputation among the Committee of Nations. Therefore, the 9th Senate and the 9th House of Representatives must, as a matter of urgency, factor into its legislative deliberations an amended Electoral Act that will address the political consequences and socio-economic impact of substandard elections, prevent the endless anguish and trepidation foisted on electorates as a result of election violence, and also prevent the general threat of less than free, fair, and credible elections in Nigeria's democratic and electoral processes.
But most importantly, we must use this opportunity to thank INEC for deregistering several redundant political parties in the country. We believe that this is the right way to go, and INEC needs to deregister more, because the cost that the nation incurs as a result of these redundant political parties, cannot be overemphasized. So we know all we need in a country is 4 or 5 strong political parties. Maybe there are 2 dominant political parties, a party for the workers, party for youth, and other vulnerable groups, groups, and another maybe alternative party, political party. The essence why it is important to reduce political parties is that, it saves cost, and the confusion that voters, undergo on election day, it also saves that. But the fulcrum of the whole text, for today is the fact that we are proposing that all elections will hold on the same day, and it reduces tension, friction, and propensity for massive rigging. Because if elections are all hold in the same day, all interests will be at stake, and we'll be able to have more credible polls, generally. Again, another very important factor that we need to highlight here is that our elections since 1999 has been suffering. We have witnessed decline in participation of voters. And why is that so? We must ask ourselves why. The reason is because voters have lost more confidence in the electoral process. So every 4 years or during the staggered elections, we see that voters are they don't have the will to participate more in the electoral process. And this is why electoral reform, must, be carried out. Again, this is another passionate appeal to the 9th Senate that they must put the electoral reform advocacy as the front burner, as one of the most important issues before them, and that they should avoid distractions and focus on this because it affects everybody. The destiny of the nation will be affected by, the quality of our elections. And whether anybody likes it, the goal of the advocacy is to galvanize all stakeholders, relevant stakeholders. Elections affect everything, whether it be good primary health care, whether it be institutional frameworks, whether it be anti-corruption. Elections affect everything. Again, we must ensure that we have, especially the state actors, like the police. Everybody must do their role, play their role well. Again, it's an opportunity again to call on the political parties themselves and the political actors themselves that everybody must commit to electoral reform. Imagine if the PDP had committed to electoral reform when they were in power. Most of their complaints today will have been taken care of. The APC itself should also commit to electoral reform because you never can tell what tomorrow will bring.
Nigeria is grappling with the reality of allowing impunity to fester in our electoral process. In the last 24 hours, the country has been gripped with the news over Bayelsa, where the popular will of the people is no longer the decider of the winners in an election. This was foisted on the court. It wasn't the making of our court. Therefore, all political stakeholders must sign immediately onto electoral reform. We are asking the PDP, the APC, the remaining political parties to recommit themselves to electoral reforms through their representatives in the National Assembly. We have made it very clear that after the Appropriation Act, the next big thing in the National Assembly should focus on is electoral reform. And we want to have this electoral reform before the next governorship elections in Edo and Ondo states. This is the irreducible demand. It is not enough for the PDP and APC to lament over the outcomes of the Supreme Court or the whatever they have seen in the judiciary. The two parties and other parties must recommit themselves to electoral reform. We must have it. We must have a well-organized election in Nigeria. Impunity is catching up with everybody. Impunity is undoing everybody. Today, it favors the PDP. Tomorrow, it could favor the APC because it wants also favor the APC. Therefore, there is no end in sight to impunity, except we do what is right, except we do what is just, except we do put in place standard best practices in organizing credible elections. We're also asking the Independent National Electoral Commission to also recommit itself and take the lead in having this electoral reform and continue to remind the National Assembly that they have this task, to do. It's a clarion call on the Speaker of the House of Representatives a clarion call on the President of the Senate, a clarion call on the 360 members of the House of Representatives and 109 senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, minus those who are dead, that they have an urgent task to reform our elections, that they have an urgent task to ensure we have the electoral amended bill, passed into law quickly. This is the only way we can salvage the situation we found ourselves. No amount of criticisms, no amount of complaint can salvage it. And let me also tell them that they have not seen the worst if they don't reform our electoral process. But we believe that wisdom should prevail and they should let us have it simply because this is the only thing that we can do to redeem our elections and for us to be able to say that we are indeed a nation that other nations can emulate in the sub-region and in the entire continent of Africa. Nigeria should take the lead in terms of election conduct. Nigeria should take the lead in terms of how we manage elections in Africa. Nigeria should not be the butt of the world or the butt of Africa or the joke of everybody. Therefore, we are also asking the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, General Muhammadu Buhari, to also recommit himself towards ensuring that we have credible, free, fair elections as a legacy to this country. There is no alternative to electoral reform. And as an organization, as a movement, as activists, we have committed ourselves to this very important process. We are committed to it. We will ensure that we support the National Assembly, we will support INEC and support all relevant stakeholders to ensure that we have electoral reform. We will come forward with our suggestions. We are also advising Nigerians to also come forward with their suggestions. Like I said, the only way we can prosper as a nation is to put in place an enduring system that will serve as a good recruitment process for good leaders. When we have good leaders, we have good governance. When we have good governance, there will be development. When we have development, everybody will be happy. And that can only be possible if we have a system that can produce good leaders for us as a nation. We don't want bills that will be amended weeks and months to the general elections. What we are demanding is for this to be done now. So that we'll test run it in Ondo, we'll test run it in Edo, we'll test run it in Anambra, and if there is any other election before 2023. We don't want what happened in 2015 to repeat itself, where the card reader was only tested on the day of election. That is not possible. It appears we are not learning from our mistakes, but we have to learn this time around and ensure that we put in place mechanisms, processes, put technology into our system, and test them before the general election, such that all of us can be on the same page. So we are appealing to you, the media, and all Nigerians, that look, let us not just lament, let us not just agitate, let us not just speak. Let us commit ourselves to doing what is right. You cannot plant impunity and reap success. If you plant a rigged primary, you will reap bad elections. We have seen it happen time without number. We don't want the court to determine the winner of elections again in Nigeria. We want the people of the Federal Republic of Nigeria to determine the winners of election. It is called democracy, government of the people, by the people, and for the people, based on popular will. And that's what we are advocating for. Save the court this stress and this trauma, and let democracy thrive. And that starts from a credible electoral reform in Nigeria.
Electoral reform process in Nigeria has become one of our recent challenge as Nigeria is concerned. But then I want to talk about the violence. These days in Nigeria, violence has become part of our electoral process. I'm sorry to say that, but it has become one of it. But how do we cope these situations? And that is why we are begging or appealing to the 9th National Assembly to pass this electoral bill, because it will go a long way in helping us reduce the rate of violence in elections. As a young person, what is my future? If I have to think of voting and losing my life on election day, why do I have to go out to vote? My life is at stake. Why do I risk it to vote? And sometimes when the young people believe that their votes are not counted, why do they have to still go on to vote? That is why we are clamoring and appealing to the 9th National Assembly to please make sure this bill is passed and implemented, because it will go a long way in reducing violence in our elections. Elections should not be a war affair. It is not a do or die thing. We have to take it serious. This is a point where we have to get it right, and get it right, not just for today, for tomorrow. What are these young people going to say about us? Like we all know, recently in Kogi State, a young man, a young boy, who for the first time was going for an election, lost his life in the process. What is our government doing in place to reduce situations like that? So if we can have 3 elections in a day, we can as well have 5 elections in a day. Electronic system of voting in Nigeria is possible. Our 9th National Assembly, we believe they are capable of making this come to pass in our nation. So we are seriously appealing that this bill be passed. It will go a long way in reducing, especially violence in elections. Violence. Women are scared of going out to vote. Young people are scared of going out to vote. Why do I have to go out to vote when I'm not even sure of going back to my family? Why do I have to lose a relative because of election? So this is a serious appeal we are making to the 9th Assembly. Please, this has to be in place. This has to be in place, and it has to be in place. Thank you.
We must always commend such great and noble innovation, which the President has suggested, is because no Nigerian should be disenfranchised on the account of where they stay or their location. You know, another important factor is that we cannot provide an answer to that without first looking at this issue of electronic voting. One of the basic problems of the current Electoral Act is that it does not recognize electronic voting. And okay, so then the other question we need to ask is, what is the essence of the card reader then? If electronic voting is not recognized, then why do we need to use the card reader? So let us just abolish the card reader and go back to the old system of where we use manual accreditation and method. But in as much as we do know that the PVC, if the PVC is important to our electoral process, if the card reader is important to our electoral process, then the Electoral Act amendment must recognize electronic voting. You understand? Because electronic voting is the way to go, is the way to eradicate most of the fraudulent things we notice and witness during our elections. And besides, INEC has been using electronic voting effectively in Nigeria. They used it in Osun, used it in Ondo, used it in Ekiti, used it even in Edo. Yes, they did e-collation, not just e-collation, they did electronic accreditation, you understand, and transmission of results. Absolutely. It was only when it got to the turn of presidential election, politics came in. Again, the only notable reason the president gave for not signing the electoral bill amendment into law was that it was too close to the last general election. Let's even excuse the president and say we agree. Now, what can be the reason for not doing the right thing? So I believe that Nigerians in diaspora, they ought to vote. They ought not to be disenfranchised. You understand? They need to be given the opportunity or suffrage to express their right to suffrage, which is to vote at every election. And therefore, you know, the right to suffrage is a universal right. It's a universal right and it's inalienable. So we believe that every Nigerian in diaspora or at home should enjoy that right. And they cannot enjoy that right without electronic transmission or electronic voting, because the only way they can do it is through electronic method. And this is the reason why electronic voting must become a part and parcel of our electoral process. If you read all the judgment of the courts about electronic voting, you have cause to be worried for our nation's democracy. We cannot say after 20 years of democracy, look at what we witnessed in 2015. It was a significant progress, but it seems to be retrogressing. So, you know, for us to succeed as a nation, we must get back on that track that Jega set in 2015 and now try to